Okay, well, because the new system doesn't automatically fade to the one with the frame around it, I have to press buttons now and do this. So, hi guys, my name is Paul Webber, and great to be here. And yeah, welcome to Love Audio's YouTube channel. Now, what is Love Audio all about? Well, it's a safe, fun, friendly, and hopefully entertaining platform for you to learn the basics in audio production. So if you guys are on board with all of that, then let's get going, shall we? Love Audio. Now that's the new graphics. That should have worked, which is pretty cool, actually. And there it is. It appears like magic. All right, let's say hi to some people first of all. It's great to have you along, by the way, this evening, this afternoon, this morning, wherever in the world you're listening or watching this from. And of course, if you're watching the playback, then that's absolutely fantastic as well. Now, hi to Etch D&B. That's Etch Drum and Bass in Taunton, Somerset. We are here. Good to see you this evening. Hello to you. Danny Davis is in Essex in the UK. Hello to you. Ina Reese Hansen. Hello to you. Welcome from Denmark. Hello to you. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Whit Prophet is in Canada. He says, I'm close to being on time this week. Whit, it doesn't matter if you're late, early, or anything like that. You're very welcome, of course, to join the stream. Thank you so much for joining us. Canada represent in the house from Whit Prophet, so thank you very much indeed. It's interesting because my special guest this evening is from America, and well, he kind of hails from, it doesn't really matter at the moment, but anyway, he enjoyed careers as a radio disc jockey and as a public television director and producer in the 1970s, neither of which apparently were very successful. We don't believe that for a second. After those fiascos, he hit upon his true calling when he founded Ken R LLC, which, for those of you who don't know, is a limited liability company, I think, something like that, similar to what it is in the UK. It was a jingle recording studio, and in 1977. Now, during the next 30 years, he and his merry band of singers and musicians produced jingles heard around the world for clients including, and this is no short list by any stretch of the imagination, United Airlines, Pizza Hut, and thousands of radio and internet radio stations. There was a period when Mr. Deutsch also ground out 5 books, some of which are about radio and jingles, and all of which you can find at the website. We'll give you the address towards the end. Ken is now a full-time resident of Sarasota, Florida. Beautiful place to live, which is fantastic, where he now works on an oldies podcast, Rare and Scratchy Rock and Roll. That sounds really good, doesn't it? And otherwise enjoys retirement, drinking nothing but tea and water. He's earned himself a nickname from his wife, Mr. Excitement. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that, Ken. Ken Deutsch has been a model citizen whilst on parole. Unless certain discoveries are made, he should be on the outside for a while so that he can continue to write for Radio World, restore audio, and also practice his photography and photo editing skills, which is brilliant. And he was kidding about the parole part, okay? Ken Deutsch likes to talk about himself in the third person, at least for purposes of this biography. So it's my great pleasure to welcome him to the show. Please put your hands together, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome my guest, Mr. Ken Deutsch. Stay there, Ken. I've got to unmute you 2 seconds. There we go. Right, you can now speak to the world.
Hello. I don't know what I have to say to the world, but hello, I am here. So that's a miracle of technology right there.
Thank you, and I hope you don't mind me reading out your entire life history there for everybody to hear.
No. I left out all of the really embarrassing parts of it too.
You really did, didn't you? Yeah, you know, I've read a couple of the books, and they're quite hair raising at parts, which is great. But listen, you and I have a commonality in the fact that we love jingles, and for the uneducated, a jingle is a very short piece of music, generally. Some are longer, obviously, but a short piece of music that either sings the praises of a company or a radio station or a product. Am I right in saying that?
I would say yes, and primarily our interest, the interest I share with you and all the other jingle freaks is radio call letter jingles, which sing the call letters, or sometimes, if there's no call letters, just the name of the station, radio such and such or whatever. Yeah. And here in the United States, we have like Kiss FM, and we have Magic FM and things like that. But where they sing those letters or that station name, that's the jingle. That's what we're talking about.
And you heard my jingle on the kind of video intro there as well. So That was produced by Jam Creative Productions, your friend John Wolford in Dallas, Texas.
Yeah, it was very nice. And the question arises in people's mind, why are you interested in jingles? Why aren't you interested in records? And I do occasionally listen to actual music when I'm driving my car or something like that.
Yeah.
But it has something to do with when we all grew up. And we were all so interested in the radio and the disc jockeys and being on the radio. And the jingles were a big part of that experience because I think they provided kind of the image we had in our mind for those radio stations.
Yeah, and you're very fortunate being in America where the radio exploded like crazy, after the pirate ships and everything else and all that kind of thing, and really started really early in America. Over here, we weren't quite so lucky. We had to put up with, 2 or 3 channels if we were lucky, but also the pirate stations on the ships and things like that in the 60s. And then Radio 1 launched by the BBC, of course, and that was the big catalyst that kind of started the explosion of radio here in the UK. And a lot of the jingles that I've got are stem from the old Radio 1 packages from the 80s, really the 70s and 80s that Jam produced. But let's go back to your particular jingle kind of career, if you will. How did you get into it, and what was the catalyst for that? How did you get started in the world of making these tiny little songs that we call them?
Well, I think it all goes back to when I was a little tyke, perhaps 8 or 9 years old in the late 50s. And I lived at that time very near a big city called Chicago, Illinois. And the big station there was WLS, AM radio. And I loved it. I loved the whole station. I loved the presentation, and particularly the jingles, which at that time were by the Anita Kerr Singers, who of course went on to greater fame in the record business too. But I always wanted to be that guy who was talking on the radio, who was talking to kids. And I didn't know quite how to go about it. But my father, as you have told me, was kind of a similar thing in your case. He brought me home a dictaphone that he used at his office, which is kind of like a tape recorder. And he brought me a turntable, which we bought at a discount store. And of course, I had a bunch of records, and I bought a few more. And I rigged up a microphone, or a pretend microphone, by putting a coffee cup on a broomstick handle or something like that, and pretended to be a DJ. And then I was able to actually, when I got into college, there was a college radio station where I went, which was at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And anybody who walked in could get on the air, pretty much. So the stakes and the bar were set very low. So they accepted me. And I started a radio show there, and I just loved it. I had such a great time.
Yeah.
And I went on to work at a few other radio stations. And finally, I'm giving you a very long answer to a very short question. But just to kind of wrap it up here, when I knew that my radio career didn't have a big future, at that point, I went into TV for a short period of time as a producer-director, and then I opened my own jingle studio because I didn't know that it was economically not feasible to do so. I just did it anyway, just like a bumblebee flies, even though the aerodynamics of a bumblebee flying are particularly impossible. But I started a jingle studio called Ken R LLC, which stands for Limited Liability Corporation here. And it was just, it kind of took off after a short period of time. And I ended up doing commercial jingles and call letter jingles, and I really had a wonderful time. It was just the most fun I'd ever had. So that's the long answer to the short question.
It always fascinated me from an early age, a bit like yourself, really. Where do these, okay, so you can hear them between the songs, and I wasn't really interested in the songs, I guess. I was more interested in where do these jingles come from? And you're pretty much the same, aren't you? You kind of think, well, they are good. They sound good. Do the radio stations produce them, or is it something that's produced elsewhere? And of course, that's how you found out that it was quite a lucrative business in order to produce it somewhere else. So you got into it yourself, of course, later on. But it's interesting, isn't it? We listen to radio in different ways, and sometimes it's on in the background. We don't even realize it's on, and it's there for wallpaper. And other times we listen really intently to talk radio, for instance. But even talk radio stations have jingles So they want to be able to brand themselves and to be able to lift that image, if you will, and make sure that the next time that person tunes in, they know exactly who they're listening to. And that's the point, really, isn't it? It's about branding.
I think that branding is even more important now than it was in the 50s and 60s, because in the 50s and 60s in the United States, we had maybe 5 radio stations in each small town and maybe 10 or 15 in the biggest cities like Los Angeles and New York and Chicago. And, you know, now in Los Angeles, for example, there's 70 different signals coming into Los Angeles from various radio stations. And it's so much more important to brand your station so that people know what it is. You know, what is your station? Well, we're, you know, Heart Radio 105, or we're, you know, whatever it is. We're Magic 106. And it's so much more important now than it was even then.
Like this, you mean?
Love audio.
Yes, yes, quite like that, yes. And that's a very nice jingle. And the guy, of course, that produced that, John Wolford, is a good friend of mine and has been since about 1970 when we first started trading jingle packages that we had amassed from different places. And he's just gone on to be the king of the jingle world. And he knows probably more about jingles than any single person in the world right now.
Well, I've got a script ready for my next one.
Oh, great.
Yeah, it's
very good.
It's quite a long cut. It's from their Uptown package for KVIL. So, but I've tried to make the most of the lyrics. So I don't tell him, but so I get so many remixes and mix downs out of the package.
Very good. KVIL was right there in Dallas where John is, and it is right there in Dallas where John is.
Well, I had the pleasure of going to John's studio when I was 50, 5 years ago, and 2 days before we were staying in a hotel in Dallas, and we phoned him and sent the lyrics over on email. He said, "Well, actually, I've got a session on whatever let's say it's Monday. It was Wednesday. We've got a session on Wednesday. Why don't you come down and watch?"
Cool.
I know,
what a
right?
cool thing.
Just, yeah, and you know, you've been doing it for how many years? But it was the thing. To just sit there and you know, sit behind the desk and sit behind his mastery, and the engineer, I can't remember his name, but he was there as well, and the 7-voice group was in the studio, and we have photographs taken and all that sort of, and John would not let me leave until I had a CD in my hand with the jingles on it, and it was like 6 p.m. by that stage. Do you know what I mean? So, you know,
yes,
fair play to him.
And watching a vocal group in action is quite a unique experience. The first time I got to see a Dallas vocal group in action was in 1971, when I flew to Pam's to watch them sing my little 10-second a cappella. And they all thought I was crazy. They just thought, first of all, who's going to get a jingle for himself? Nobody does that.
Well, yeah,
and second of all, you're gonna come down here and, well, in 1971 nobody did.
Right.
And you're gonna come down here and watch us sing that jingle, okay? And when I saw them walk into the studio, I was a little underwhelmed. I pictured them as if they were gods on Mount Olympus. Here they were, you know, 3 housewives and 4 guys that looked like they were, you know, working on a barbecue or something like that. Just average looking people.
Yeah.
But they have a very special talent, and they can sight read, as you mentioned. Their voices blend, and they instantly know exactly how to do a particular jingle just by looking at it. And it was just a thrill to watch.
It's an amazing process that they go through. And on last week's show, I mentioned, and I played a little bit of your audio, which I'm grateful for you, granting permission to use that. We did a little bit where you'd sung a jingle for a college.
Yes.
And the whole theme of the show last week was about stacking vocals, making them sound bigger than they actually are. So, you know, going through that stage of not necessarily grabbing that first lot of vocals and then putting it onto track 2 and making it bigger. That's not the way to do it. The way to do it as you do it is to what you call backstack or stack it.
Yeah, I can explain it really easily and why it sounds like it does. It has to do with the decibel scale. If you have somebody singing something and it's at a particular decibel, you would think that if they sang the same thing again and combined it with the first, that it would be twice as loud. But it's not. it's only 3 decibels louder,
Mm.
which is still kind of a lot, but because decibels are not a linear scale, they're an algorithmic scale. But I'm getting off the subject. When you have one group of people singing, the 7 voices in the studio, and then you have them sing on another track of the multi-track, and you have them listen to their first track so that they match it as closely as possible,
Mhm.
you'd think 14 people would sound more like a choir than like a jingle. But no, because they're so good and they match themselves so closely, and in fact, sometimes there's a little bit of phasing because they do match so closely,
Mm.
it just strengthens the vocal. And it kind of pitch averages. If somebody is just a little low on
Ah,
one pitch
yeah, yeah.
and they stack that pitch, it'll kind of pitch average. And so it actually helps it sound more in tune. But I will say that the real professional singers sing it in tune. There's no
Yeah.
such thing as fixing it in the mix.
No.
But
Not
when you
not
do
like
hear a
not
vocal that has been stacked,
yeah,
I'm sorry.
not like I do and use Melodyne to correct my own voice.
Yeah,
Shh. Uh,
yeah, that's it's not quite
Occasionally.
the same thing. When it's not quite the same thing. But the
No.
singers in Dallas, people say, "Do you have some machine that does that? You know, you just turn on the machine and play it for them or something." No,
No.
it's actual people,
Yeah.
men and women,
Yep.
who come in and they're able to make it sound like that. It's no machine, you know.
And like you say, they are immensely talented, and you know the ability to pick up a piece of music and know where the notes are
Hmm.
and know what to sing. It just blows my mind
Hmm.
because I've never been able to read music. They used to try and teach me guitar at school, and because I'm left-handed, my dad very kindly
Hmm.
swapped all the strings around, so I played like Paul McCartney. But
Yeah.
it still didn't help me get any closer to playing the guitar properly. You know, it was just so difficult, and I don't know if even at the age of 55 whether it's possible to learn music from scratch. I don't know if it is or not.
You're able to learn something, but you're
Mm,
never going to be able to sing like they do because they've done it since they were 4 or 5 years old.
mm,
Many of them started just singing and playing a guitar when they were very young. They sang in choirs in high school and college, and then they sang in all sorts of different vocal groups, and their lives are singing. You know, they would not be able to pick up what you do, for example, or what I do.
mm.
They are just so focused on singing. And every once in a while, you get somebody who is not only a great singer, but a great arranger. In other words, able to write the music or play an instrument.
Mm.
One such person who I met many times in Dallas was this chap named Chris Kershaw. And um, he could pick up any instrument and play it. He played piano, he played guitar, he played bass on played bass on one of my jingles, in fact. And he was also able to not only sing in a vocal group and blend with the other people,
Hmm.
but he was able to do a solo voice too. And I will tell you now that most people that sing in vocal groups do not sing solos. They just don't have the kind of voice that lends itself to solo work. There are a few, um, but usually people either sing in a group or they sing solos.
Mm.
And it's just a very specialized talent to sing in a group.
It's very fascinating. We're just going to say hi to some people. We said hello earlier on to Ina. Ina's from Denmark, and thank you for joining us, Ina. I did a jingle for Ina quite recently, in fact, for his YouTube channel. He's very pleased with that. So that's good. I do make jingles, but as I say, I don't particularly fancy my own voice that much unless it's been treated with something. Wit, of course, is in Canada. So he's saying thank you very much indeed to the show so far. Thank you very much indeed for that. And Danny is in radio. Danny's in radio as well, and works on the southeast coast of England in Essex. And he's on a radio station down there, so finds this kind of thing pretty fascinating as well, which is good.
Do
Ken,
you
with
ever get
your
any women watching or listening?
normally, yes. Normally,
Really?
there's a couple that
Okay.
come in. Yeah, so Sarah would come in. She sent me a beautiful card. In fact, I got it in the hallway back here. Sent me a beautiful card today from I think she's Philadelphia. Pretty sure she's Philadelphia.
Hmm.
So that was nice to receive. Best of luck with your new ventures and all that kind of thing that's going on here. I won't bore you with the details, but yeah, plenty going on. And so that was really nice to receive. And probably a couple of others. I mean, yeah, HDMB. That's Tom, my son, who's in Taunton in Somerset, about 50, 60 miles from here. And his girlfriend Becky will be watching as well. They both produce drum and bass music. It's way over my head. I know I have no clue, but
Wow.
yeah.
Okay.
So it's pretty cool. And of course, you get the people watching the playback as well, which will be finding this fascinating, particularly if they're into jingles and that sort of thing. So what I'd like to do, Ken, you've given me, again, permission to play this. It's one of your videos that you've produced back in 1999, I believe. Do you just want to preface this with an introduction about what it's about before I press the play button?
Very well.
Before.
Oh, you want me to?
Yeah. Just give us a background
I
about
thought you were going to tell.
what it's about.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right. Okay. Well, my singers and I had 5 singers in a vocal group in Toledo, Ohio, which is in the northern part of the United States, kind of near the Great Lakes. That's where we were. And I had this vocal group that sang for me once a week, sometimes even more. And in a given session, we would do anywhere from 12 to 15 jingles an hour with a 10-minute break in each hour. And they sight read very fast. And we just, from working together for so many years, we became very close. And so every Christmas, I would have a Christmas party with these fine folks. And we were friends. I mean, we didn't socialize outside of the studio because we kind of got sick of each other, after all the jingle sessions. But we did like each other.
Yeah.
And so I had a Christmas party and I invited them. And I always put together an audio tape of some of the best things they did and some of the outtakes that I saved where they really screwed up in an embarrassing way. And so I'd play these. And the last few parties we did, the Christmas parties in 1995 through I think about 1999 or 2000, we had a professional videographer come in and videotape it. And so what you're going to see here is some people actually singing through a jingle, and then you'll hear a couple of completed jingles. So I hope that sets it up appropriately for you.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Punching in after Rick the G.
Rick the G is on.
Okay, now let's do the whole ending of this thing.
Rock again, Rick the G's time machine.
You know what? We'll just go back in and pop in the higher octave later.
Oh,
So you don't have to make that death-defying octave leap there.
okay. Rick the G is on. With all your requests. Rock and roll again, Rick the G's time machine.
You're stud.
John Tolson.
I was so waiting for you to come in and measure early.
I know.
I was waiting.
I had no idea where one was.
HWD,
Hospital Radio.
hospital,
HWD, Hospital Radio.
Oh. WD.
hospital
Go.
radio.
I'm sorry.
One more layer of hospital.
WD.
Hospital Radio.
Yo.
And that song, I'm on the Mexican radio.
Radio.
Oh my.
Radio Eastward.
Music, news, and fun.
Your friendly local station. Radio Eastwood.
We'll be doing this in pieces, right?
Word.
Radio Eastward.
Radio Eastward. Radio Eastward.
That's cool.
Sing that time.
Music, news, and fun. Your friendly local station. One
we
more
gotta
time.
talk about a couple things. Are we singing and or end?
Music, news, and fun. Your friendly local station.
Was that okay?
Ooh.
What, who?
Someone was late getting to your.
Oh.
Your friend.
Okay.
Your friend. Your friend. Your friend. Music, news, and fun. Your friendly local station.
That was the first track. I bet it'll be all right.
Yeah, let's try and add third parts.
So sliced.
So boys are coming in on radio.
Radio.
Boys are on radio and girls come in on Eastward.
Correct.
Here we go.
That is good.
Music, news, and chat on your favorite station. Requests and dedications. Radio Eastward.
How about it, boss? It's been great. It's been 5 years. I didn't know Lisa before I came here, and I didn't know Ken either, and so made wonderful friends with you two. I knew you three, but you two not very well. This is a big highlight of my week. I love to teach, but I love this more. I love spending time with all of you people. I like laughing. I like singing all the hard stuff that we do. Lots of favorite jingles, lots of favorite commercials. I couldn't even begin to start with the ones that are the best, but it's just been a pretty awesome time.
You know, you just do an amazing job. You pick out these ridiculous inner parts with, you know, leaps of, you know, sharp fourths and all sorts of strange things like that, and you just make them happen. And you know, Amy was the last one to add to the group, and we put you in there, and all of a sudden the sound just gelled and it focused, and it just added a little color to it, you know, kind of a brightness to it, and it's just an amazing sound. I did not realize, and this all caught me by surprise, but you know, we made this announcement that we were going to be stopping doing jingles at the end of the year, and suddenly, you know, I'm getting email messages from people in, you know, Ireland, and email messages from people in England and California and every other state that we've done jingles for, and they all uniformly say, you know, we can pay a lot more money, but we can't get better jingles. That's what they all say, and that's you guys. I mean, you know, I write the same notes that they do in Dallas. You know, we sing the same kind of things that they do. And, you know, we started out as kind of the second cousin. And not anymore, really. It's, you know, it's, and it's, you know, to be attributed to you guys because you just put that sound together and perfectionist enough to really get it right. And people do appreciate it, and they do notice.
I don't know what I can say that Amy hasn't said. I mean, it's been one of the greatest musical experiences of my life so far, without question. And it's so refreshing to be here with everybody who wants to be here, because some of us are with some people who don't want to be there in school every day. You know, I like to teach. I love to teach. But this is, you know, this is where it's at. This is where the real music happens. And it's great to sit back and listen and go, wow, we did that? You know, when you can amaze yourself, you're pretty good.
You know, DJ is probably the most, I would say, the most versatile singer in the group as far as what he can do. I mean, you know, we all have, or you all have little talents and things that you do particularly well, but, you know, DJ, you know, you amaze me because you do the country, you know, that kind of country thing.
That's right.
And
Just
you
call
can
me
do
Sybil. That's good.
Yeah. Multiple
What do you
personalities.
mean by that?
But he does hard rock, and he can do barbershop, and he can just fit right in with the jingle group and a male blend kind of thing.
It's nice of you to say. I don't really put myself above anybody else. Everybody's got their things they can do, and I always think of myself as having many, many useless talents, except here somehow I get paid for them, which is really cool. Thank you. I like that. Nowhere else could I get paid to go. That's it. It's amazing.
Music, news, and fun. Your friendly local station.
And Lisa, in terms of
sorry.
in terms of seniority, you're kind of it here by a few months anyway.
I got him beat by a month or so.
Yeah, but Lisa is a 20-year veteran here in the Jingle Wars. You were kind of the first one, and we kind of built the
Back
sound
when
around you.
we were young, skinny, and, well, some of us were
Yeah.
skinnier.
Started singing.
Shut up! You're going to get smacked with a microphone in a minute.
You were 8. Get out of here.
She was!
Oh my
She
God.
was.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is something.
Yeah.
But we kind of started, and we built a vocal group, and we got you, and then we got Doug involved, and everybody else kind of followed in. But
The fun for me was adding these very, very talented people and watching it kind of come together. And within a relatively short period of time, we had a saleable vocal sound.
Music news and chat. Cut.
I didn't hear enough dings.
I wouldn't touch that line.
First. Standing under the bridge, you know, in Collinwood, we'll do shouts for food. Got our little headphones on.
Oh, God. Holding our end.
We went to Toronto together.
Yes?
Some of us did, and we went to Chicago. But I remember sitting in Ed DeBevic's restaurant, and they were playing oldies on the sound system, and you were singing in harmony, and I was sitting at the table just having the time of my life. I just thought, this is why I'm here. This is really fun, you know? What was that? No.
We didn't get to go on any cool trips like that.
Because you were 9, that's why. People in Europe certainly know who you are and ask about you in email, and you know now.
Really? Are any of them single, handsome, and possibly rich?
I don't know.
That's my
I don't either.
We're being a cult.
Getting cultish.
Yeah, getting
Oh,
cultish.
okay. But you know, your pictures have been on some of our CDs, and people know who you are, and people ask about you, and you know, I think it's really cool.
Doing this has just been the most musically and personally gratifying thing in my life. It's been a huge part of my life, and every time I think about how I will miss it, I get sad, and then I think to myself, wait a minute, you've had 21 years of doing something that you absolutely love, something that you wanted to do before you started doing it, and it's been just totally enjoyable. It's like a gift, you know. It's just been wonderful.
Ben has been Mr. Bass all of these years. He's the guy who you kind of stand next to him and you rumble a little bit with him when he sings. And you started in what year?
84, I do
84.
believe.
And he just kind of stands there on his own little mic and gets right up next to the mic and goes, make a bass note for the people that...
Make a bass note?
Yeah, yeah.
Bob.
I love that.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
The children. Well, I actually have some favorite jingles. I do. It's really between two. It's between the pigeon jerky, yeah, which is one of my all-time favorites, or I think it might have been eclipsed by the rip-off, the When Harry Met Sally rip-off from the cafe lunch scene that Amy is so infamous for.
Oh, yes!
Yeah.
Something like that.
That's amazing. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I'm getting the vapors over here. What a slogan. What a slogan. Okay. Any other jingles that you remember or experiences that you remember singing with all of these people?
Just the day-to-day, week-to-week, coming in here and being able to spend time with friends, some whom I spent an inordinate amount of time with already, but that we can get together and share this sort of thing, and two of the loves of my life, and these two ladies who I just I love them as people. I love their voices. It's just what we do is so special. You know, Russ is always there to say hi. And
I never get to hear Ben by himself, so I'm going to hand this to you, and I want you to do Rick the G's Time Machine, the famous 251. Just would you do that last 2 bars for people? What key is that in?
the last 2 bars.
Yeah, what key? I didn't look at it.
It would be this one right here.
Okay, all right.
Rick the G's Time Machine.
Oh, there you go. Wow.
That
was great. Okay.
I can't hear you, Paul.
I'm muted. Sorry, that's my fault. I just wanted to pause that just a second so we can catch up and kind of get a flavour of how that's going so far. It's just fascinating for me and for those watching about the fact that you've got such a tight knit, or you had such a tight knit group of singers, and you were able to highlight their strengths, if you will, within the group. But it's about that, isn't it? It's about that coming together and about being a group of singers, not just one solo artist that thinks they're God's gift, you know?
Right. Occasionally, they each would have solos in various jingles from time to time, but basically, they sang 7 parts with 5 people,
Yeah.
which meant that we would do one layer of 5 voices, all of them singing, another layer of 5 voices, and then 2 layers of the missing parts. And when you blend it all together, it sounds like a jingle. And, you know, besides the camaraderie, which was really a wonderful experience working with them, you can tell we were having fun.
Yeah.
But to watch them come together as a group and instantly know where we were going with every jingle. Obviously, if we're doing 10, 12 jingles in an hour, you can't waste any time. You can't go over to the piano and figure out your part, you know, play it and go, can't do that. You just have to do it. And not only that, but the singers instinctively know by the vocal chart or the written music what kind of vibrato to use, where the cutoffs are, in other words, where they end their words.
Mm-hmm.
They understand that, they know it, and instinctively, after singing together for so many years, they just made my job a breeze. And while I was running the board and, you know, kind of moving things along and producing the session, I counted on Doug, the guy with the white hair that we haven't quite heard from yet in the tape. I don't know if you want to play him or not, but
yeah, no, we're
he
definitely
was the
going to
leader.
finish the rest of this. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, well, he was the leader of the vocal group, and I always trusted his ear. If he said we need another layer, let's do it. If he said no, I was a little sharp on that, let's do it again. I always deferred to him in matters of music, because in that room where the singers are, he was the boss. In the room where I was the boss. And there were no egos at all. We just did what we all needed to do, and we just had a great time.
But I think you're right. You need somebody in the control room like yourselves as a producer, but you also need somebody in the vocal booth in the room where the singers are, as you say, to not necessarily direct, but certainly to pick up on things that he thinks could be improved upon. You know, so yeah, that works really well, doesn't it? Excellent.
Yeah, and in Dallas they kind of do the same thing. They have every vocal group has a session leader. And sometimes it's the guy that wrote the vocal charts or wrote the jingles. Sometimes not. Sometimes it's like the lead tenor guy or something like that. But he's the one who's the ultimate authority in the studio where the singers are.
And he's got an ear for that, hasn't he? So he knows whether somebody, like you say, comes in slightly late or slightly early or doesn't reach that note or has too much vibrato on it or whatever it might be. So he has that ear and knows what the product should sound like at the end. Once you've mixed it and everything else and mastered it and whatever else. But he's got that ear for listening out for any not necessarily mistakes, that's a wrong word, but, you know, just little anomalies that could be improved upon.
Yeah, that's it. And everybody wanted the same thing. We were all rowing the boat in the same direction. We all wanted the best sounding jingle that we could get, and also with one eye on the clock. You know, we knew that we had to do a certain number of jingles in an hour. And sometimes in one evening, we would sing 50 different jingles in a 3.5 hour session. And we just had to all pull together. That's it.
Amazing. Let's go back to the video.
Okay.
Well, Doug, I don't know, what can I say? If you hadn't been here, we wouldn't have been here. I'm sure of that.
Well,
I am absolutely positive of that.
I drugged some of these other people in.
Yeah.
Because I knew them from other musical ventures that we were doing. Because these two guys I sing with sort of semi-professionally all over the world.
Yeah.
And when we needed a bass spot, you know, obviously this guy's going to fill it, and we needed to add another guy, and it's like, hello, we already knew who that would be.
Yeah. But it's you know, you really kind of direct things in there, you and DJ to some extent, but I mean, you're the guy who says, it's up to you. If you say the take is not good and we need to do it again, we do it again. If you say it's fine, we move on. I mean, that's that. And I really have counted on you all this time to just kind of...
Well, 20 years, you know, it's been a glorious time, and I was teaching at the university, and I would come over here after this, and this was the most fulfilling thing that I did, teaching at the university and doing all these glorious pieces of music, and come here and do these jingles, and it was the most fun. And getting a chance to work with a lady of that caliber, of Lisa's caliber, for this amount of years, I'm I've never met anybody with more musical talent in my life, and I've been singing professionally. Yeah, right. I've been singing for 52 years. Started singing on the radio when I was 2 years old, and I'm 54. So I've been singing for 52 years, and I've never met an equal to that woman.
Amen.
And she's just, it's
Absolutely.
just been a glorious 20 years to sing with somebody like that. And then to add, to add these other people, it's just wonderful.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite things is when we come in, before we start the session, well, first of all, of course, pop a beer. And then secondly, to hear what we did in the last session. When we do those glorious, those collage things that he does, montage.
Montage, yes.
Montage.
Russ is montage man, yeah.
It's wonderful, because I don't, oh, this is scary, I don't remember doing them. Am I just that drunk by that time, folks? But, we read them off the stand, and you don't realize how musically wonderful they are until you hear them back a week or two later, and then you go like, dang, that's good. I mean, there's nobody that does it any better. And it was wonderful,
When we put the jingles together, we do some things to them. We add compression and reverb and sometimes little vibrato effects or, that kind of thing. But none of that makes any difference if the singing is not right to begin with. And the singing is right, and it's there, and it's very solid. And, I don't have to go about fixing many things at all. I just kind of put it there and do it. And, I really think that you guys are like 95% of this, and the rest of us are all 5% of it is really how I see it. I have something to do with selling the jingles and dealing with those client-type folks out there.
I don't think Ray hired 93.
Oh.
No.
But
it's been such a wonderful time, though. When we're standing in there and we're working, and it's really high pressure. I mean, there's nothing that I've done really that's ever, except maybe when you're actually recording like a Ritz album, that's more intense. And what you're called on to do in the next 3 minutes, and then after that you just get that done, and you go like this, and then you're on like this again. And so it's a really intense hour and a half, two and a half hours that we do. Wait. 3.5 hours. See? 3.5 hours that we do at a time. But it's amazing how intense it is. And yet we have so much fun because we enjoy each other. And you understand that we have to have that. If we didn't, we'd explode in there because it's so intense.
Well, we pretty much have to do anywhere between 6 and 8 or 9 jingles an hour. Which is a lot of jingles when it's 5, 6, 7-part harmony, sometimes more, and every note has to be right. It's not a live performance, it's on tape. And people are going to hear it over and over again, and every note has to be right. And it is by the time we get done and we move on to the next one. But you're right. I mean, we have fun, but we keep it moving. We don't let the energy level flag too much.
It's been so wonderful. If you would add up over 20 years for Lisa and I and all the others that these people have done, the number of hours that we've just been like, intense like that, it would scare you, and the products that have come out of it have just been just glorious, just absolutely wonderful, something I'm really, really proud of.
I was just sitting here adding them up. We've got over 95 years of jingle experience in this room.
And that's just Doug. We sing contemporary jingles, we sing country jingles, we do commercials, jazzy kinds of commercials. Solos, all guys, 4 freshmen kind of stuff, all girls, just with you 5 people. And the amount of versatility that you guys have is just astounding, and it shows because we have all that kind of stuff on our demos, and it's not boring to listen to those, and it's been a wonderful thing for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
That must be kind of. Oh. I missed the goodbye a cappella. Sorry. That must be quite emotional for you, though, looking back on that. And it's a great piece of work, by the way. Fantastic video. But I know it was one of the last ones that you recorded as a group, wasn't it?
Yeah, yeah. Just a couple of words about, in that little montage at the end, you saw some other people that were not singers. I had a staff of people working with me. I had an engineer, that was Russ, who they were making fun of because he didn't talk much.
Okay.
There was Brooke and Brooke's mother, and these are people that helped us ship out orders, because for a while we were selling CDs of Jingles that other people did too. And there were a few other, and even my wife showed up for about 2 seconds in that. She was sitting on my lap, very, very pretty blonde lady, who I'm still married to, by the way.
I'm glad about that.
So that's who all of those other people are. Yes.
Yeah.
And it is emotional for me to watch that. And I'm just kind of a sentimental old fluff. But you've probably learned more from watching that video than anything that I've said.
Well, I was going to say, it's a great compliment to be able to play that on the show, and I appreciate it. And thank you so much for letting us share that with my viewers. And for those that are interested in anything else that you've done, for instance, the books that you've produced on Jingles and these other videos that people can watch. I've got a website here, jinglesamplers.com. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And that is the site run by my friend, Ted Tatman.
Okay.
And it has samples of jingles from many different companies. It has a lot of our jingles, a lot of our demos, a lot of jingles from PAMS and TM and some of the other companies that made ID jingles. And it also has all of my books that I've written, and now it's 5 books, and they are all available in one very cheap, I think it's $39 package as ebooks. And you can find that, I think it's called the Big Book Bonanza or the Broken Book Bonanza. I don't know what it's called, but it's on there. You'll see it. BBB, I think, is the title of it. And, you can get the whole thing as an e-download for, I think, $39 from jinglesamplers.com. In case anybody's interested in the interviews that I've done with not just my singers, but singers from all of the Dallas companies I interviewed. People that made the jingles, Bill Meeks, the person that owned Pam's of Dallas, which was the most important jingle company, I think, and lots of the other singers, too.
What I didn't do, and I've neglected to do it, it's my entire fault. Let me just quickly play you this. This is, you sent me these. These are kind of just a snapshot of the jingle singers. We can still talk and narrate while these are playing. These are going to run through. There's about 68 in total that you've sent me. Which is,
oh my goodness,
which is fantastic. But some of them you've put in there the Pam's logo, which is interesting because that automatically flagged up to me that I've got this box here with Pam's, Imagineered by Pam's. It's one of the original boxes for jingles, which is amazing. And I've got a voiceover in there and a shout that was produced for me. I no longer use it because I've changed the name of the mobile DJ setup that I use, but I thought I'd play these for the viewers as well, so they can kind of see your the logos and various people that you've met in the studio. I love that neon sign, the Jingles sign, by the way. That's really cool.
That neon sign is now hanging over the bar in the basement of one of my singers.
Oh, brilliant!
And it was just when we finally sold our studio at the end.
Yeah.
I sold the Sonovox to some guy in Sweden or something like that. I sold it to pieces, went to everybody all over the world.
Yeah.
And one of the singers asked if he could have the Jingles neon sign and put it up somewhere in his house. So I gave it to him, and I saw it there one time. So it's still there.
Pam's by Ken R. Look at that. And there's one of the original boxes as well. And there's the big logo, of course, which is synonymous with Pam's Jingles back in the day.
Here's a little secret where they say Imagineered by Pam's. They actually stole the Imagineered term from Walt Disney's corporations.
I was going to say it sounds familiar, and now you've said it. It does. Yeah, it does ring a bell.
They were using that. They were using that in the somewhere around 1953 to 1955 when they were getting ready to open Disneyland, which was their first amusement park in California. Now there's others. There's one in Florida down there where we live. There's Disney theme parks all over Europe. Yeah. But at that time they were using that term, and that's when it was happening.
Oh, that's amazing. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and it's fascinating from my point of view as a jingle collector, if you will, and knowing about how you came into the industry and it's a shame that you're not producing any anymore, but I guess each company has its day, and you had yours for a good 20-25 years in the time that you ran it, and it was a unique sound that you guys produced. It wasn't like the Dallas Singers, it wasn't like the British version for Steve England over here. Alpha Sound came a very close second to yourselves, if you don't mind me saying that.
Well, thank you.
He produced thousands and thousands of radio jingles for radio stations up and down the UK and Ireland during the 80s and 90s. And his son...
I didn't leave the jingle business. Let me just say real quick, and then I'll let you finish up here. I didn't leave the jingle business because I didn't think it was successful or because it was no more fun, but I just saw the jingle industry changing and the kind of jingles that people were doing in the very late 90s and early 2000. I just wasn't really keen to do that kind of jingle, where you distort the voices and use all sorts of harmonics and things like that. It was not of interest to me because it was not as musically interesting to me. No. So I thought, well, that's a really good time to go out when we're really busy, and I'm just going to go out on a high note, and that's what I did in 2000, early 2000.
And like I say, it's a shame that you guys aren't doing any more, but I get, why you have to kind of draw the line under some things and whatever else. It's fascinating, and it's been a real
meanwhile,
pleasure.
it's been wonderful having being a guest on your show. I'm flattered that you asked me. I was never the biggest player in the jingle business, but I was happy to play a small part in it, and I'm really grateful to you. And please tell anybody that you come across that if they have any questions about jingles, give them my email address. And I get maybe a dozen queries every week from all over the world from people asking me to identify an obscure jingle or something. I'm always happy to do it. So please have people write me if they feel like it.
Well, okay. So here's one that I'll throw at you then. In that case, you did a series, or you did a jingle that sold thousands, as far as I know, through our mutual friend who's no longer with us, Ben Friedman. It was called "Growing in Your City" or "Growing with Your City."
Growing with your city.
Growing with your city, yeah. And it was about a minute and a half jingle, I suppose, but it was really good lyrically and musically, and it just sounded so good. And when I listened to that on the demo that Ben had sent out, I thought, wow, that's really good. I didn't actually buy one. I didn't have enough money at the time, but it was fascinating to hear that. And I know that it came from your singers because most of your singers were on this demo that Ben sent out. So I know you worked closely with him back in the day. But again, thank you so much for joining me, Ken. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. And like you said earlier on, if people are interested and you are watching this on the playback perhaps, and you'd like to ask any questions, please do so. Drop them in the comments, and I'll be sure to forward them on to Ken for you. So thank you. In the meantime, let's remind people of where that website is, of course, which is Jingles Sampler. Bear with me a second. Let me put it on the screen. JingleSamplers.com, and they can they can find downloads and things from there, which is pretty cool. It's exactly what I did.
Absolutely.
And I'm nowhere near anywhere through listening to any of all of that so far. I've read the two jingle books, but not read the other ones yet. So I'm going to be doing that over the next few weeks or so. But like I say, pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for joining me, Ken. Ken Deutsch.
I'll talk to you later.
Thank you. It's one of those jingles I talked about, by the way.
La Vanilla.